right? Welcome everyone. So I'm getting going on all of these recordings. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is Level 1, Lesson 2. And the topic of today's lecture is about the shape of the torus. And this shape is a basic foundational concept that I have come to understand through direct perception. Like once you start to open up your third eye and you look at yourself in the mirror, you see you yourself are shaped like a torus. And that is really where an art piece like what I just blew up back there comes from. This is a pretty good, accurate representation of the size of a energy field, a toroidal energy field, and the human that occupies it. So this is the little anthropomorphic two-armed, two-legged shape. And then here's how big and giant the energy field is all around it, all around here. So your energy field extends as far as your fingertips in every direction and even a little bit beyond. And of course, there are more subtle layers to your energy field that extend even further, like they can extend miles or even encompass a whole planet. But that is when we get to greater levels of mastery, okay? So I want to talk about what the torus is and how is it formed before I even ask you to apply any of this understanding to your personal experience as a human being within a toroidal field. So first of all, there are many different types of tori. So I have drawn, the one that I always draw is like this, a cross section where they're either the gap between the two circles is very, very tiny or non-existent. So I've got two circles, and you could imagine that this is like a tunnel, you know, that this is this area that I'm coloring in right now that is hollow. And so if you were a little car or whatever, that you could go in this tunnel and go through there and then come out that side. And of course, this is a cross section. We're looking at half of what I've drawn. And if we were to look at it from the top-down view, it would look like this, right? A donut. And then this is the tunnel that you can drive around in inside. There are many different types of tori. There's also the type that has tunnels that are further apart. So you can imagine like that far apart. And then you have, you know, the interconnection. And again, that's another cross section. So you could almost think of it like a slinky, and then the slinky bends all the way around, okay? This matters. We're getting into the direction that energy is traveling. And this is an abstraction. This is energy. This is not necessarily electrons as they are flowing, or let's name another type of energy, light particles as they are flowing. This is the energy of consciousness. This is the energy of awareness, and this is the energy of time as it is flowing. Hold on 1 minute while I have a little drink. The torus shape is created by energy flowing in two different directions. One of the directions is a circular motion. Drawn a big fat, oops, where's my pen? Drawn a big fat circle, okay? I hope you can see that clearly. Yes, big fat circle. And the other is a linear direction. So I hope you can see that. Just a big line going up and down. And of course, we can understand a straight line, you know, being like this as actually a hoop on edge. Let's look at an example of that would be, here, look. This looks like a straight line, but then when we see the other dimensional aspects of it, we recognize that this is actually a circle. So this right now is the connecting integument between the energy that is flowing up and down like this and the energy that is flowing around like this. Your mental understanding that when I draw a straight line, what you're seeing is a hula hoop on edge, all right? This is really important because really, in the way that energy is flowing, energy does not flow in straight lines. Energy flows in circular patterns. In my artwork, my art pieces are almost entirely comprised of all circles with no straight lines. We'll get more into that. The energy that is flowing is consciousness. We're going to get into how is a torus created. So we start off with the very stretchy fabric of the universe, okay? This is like the super, I need to draw it higher up on the screen, the super infinitely stretchy fabric. And then we take a thing, like I'm going to make a big giant red ball just so that you can see it really clearly. That big giant red ball is consciousness. It is awareness. When Einstein describes relativity and gravity, he describes it as, this is the stretchy fabric of space and time, and this is an infinitely heavy object, like an infinitely heavy bowling ball or something like that. And that as we sit that bowling ball down onto the surface of space and time, it begins to bend and flex and deform and eventually creates a very, very, very long vortex shape where the point is drawn down. And if it sits, so if the infinitely heavy object, if it sits on the stretchy fabric a little bit, it stretches it out a little bit. And we would call that red. If it stretches it out a little bit more, it goes into orange, going through all the colors here, but I don't have to do it perfectly, stretches more into yellow, green, blue, violet, and then if it is stretched, infinitely, I'm using violet right now, stretched to that infinite point, this point down here at the bottom, that would be a black hole, a singularity, the wormhole into another dimension. This red bowling ball is awareness on its journey. So I just drew a picture that looks like this. Students of the advanced class and new students that are, used to what I'm drawing recognize that that is an upside down time vortex. This is the little diagram that I draw all the time as our time vortex. So you can understand this is birth down here, the year 0, birth, and this is infinity up here, or where you get to exit the wormhole. We'll get into that with level 2. And all of this in here, these are all iterations. In math talk, iterations are possible combinations. So if I have, red, green, and yellow, those are the primary colors. All of the possibilities that I can do when I mix those colors together, creating the secondary colors, those are all the iterations. And this time cone represents every single possibility within your personal existence of this individuated lifetime. All right? So these are all, these timelines here, these are all individuated timelines, and they all are comprised of different events and different combinations of events. So on very short timelines, you lived a very short amount of time. That seems obvious, but just let me, go through this. You might have died a minute after you were born, or you might have gotten the flu and you died when you were a couple of days old, whatever. You didn't live for very long. And you hit the membrane of death, which is what this curved surface here is, and circulated back to the beginning. The membrane of death is comprised of the last moments of all of the timelines that you've experienced. So let's say, if this in super giant, I'm drawing it exaggerated back there. That red line is a timeline, and let's say this big lollipop on top of it, that's your last moment, okay? Let's do a theoretical. Meteorite hits Earth right now. Bam! Wherever you are in this moment, you die, and you have recorded everything that you have experienced up into this moment. So let's say if we took a snapshot of your energy field, or in the same way that I can do my hard drive, like I can copy my hard drive and record this and take a snapshot of it. Well, I only need to take a snapshot of you in your last moment, because that moment comprises all of the moments that led up to that last moment. So if I clone the hard drive of your brain in the last moment before you die, then that will contain all of your experiences and information that you've been exposed to throughout your lifetime. And now, I hope you can see on my little diagram back there, I'm drawing lots of lollipops on top of lots of these timelines. That this membrane is made out of last moments, all right? So keep that in mind, everyone. Keep this in mind. The flowing membrane of death is comprised of the captured hard drives of last moments of human experience. I have to clear the ink here, clear the ink. And now we're going to get into this shape because I use this, here we go, you can see it a little better. I use this sculpture because the three-dimensional representation of our chakras and what we're actually talking about. That diagram that I just drew was showing this area right down here, that roughly triangle-shaped lower half of the sculpture. So you're beginning to understand now that is actually circular. Oh, look at that. That is actually circular. So I'm describing a vortex, a shape that has curved sides like this and a round bottom, all right? So now we have to understand that when I am drawing a side view like this, all right, and I draw in simplified motion that timelines are heading upwards in like lollipop sticks, now we have to understand that that energy is not actually flowing in a straight line like that. It is actually curving around in a spiral in much the same way that a record, old-fashioned analog record, like an audio record, has one long spiral groove that grooves around the whole entire area. All right. I said in the beginning, as we were modeling this, I started off with a stretchy, flat sheet of time-space. Now we do yoga of perception. That's stretching your perception. We're going to start off with a ball, like a beach ball. This is the stretchy beach ball fabric of the universe. So we've taken that flat sheet and turned it into something that is spherical and rounded. And now we need to understand that that heavy bowling ball is your awareness on its journey. Hi, I'm a heavy bowling ball of awareness, and I begin to move in this direction. And as I begin to move in that direction, I create a dimpling of time and space, and eventually we end up having that vortex shape like that. And that awareness is dimpling the fabric of reality symmetrically from these various directions. So what you end up getting is a shape like this. I hope that you can see the connection between that shape that I just drew and this sculpture, which is the three-dimensional version of it. And I think you can also see, even in just some of the artwork behind me, this motif is repeated throughout all of my artwork and drawings. So let me just clear the ink and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. When I draw this four-lobed shape, it's my shorthand for a cross-section of this. All right, so you now understand with your mind's eye, you are adding in that this is actually circular, and this is actually circular, and this is circular here, and this is circular here. Okay, how do we get this shape? How is it made? All right, so the vortex is one of the primary shapes of the universe. It's like learning one's ABCs. I learned my ABCs under the guidance and tutelage of my hyperspace family. I didn't invent the ABCs. I used the ABCs to say something new, which is the flying rainbow lasagna. But I didn't invent the vortex. The vortex is, here we go, this shape right here. This is one of these primary shapes of the universe, and it is created by nothing more than energy whirling and swirling amidst itself. So that energy can be air, it can be water, it can be pure energy. And in the case of your chakras and your non-physical body, it's time. It is timelines. This is your awareness, the heavy bowling ball of awareness, and it decides I'm going to move through time. And of course, it doesn't move in a straight line as I just drew a straight arrow. It begins to spiral or corkscrew through time. And when I do these pauses, I collect myself because I have mental notes of all the different things that I need to be sharing. Okay, so your chakras are created by first making a torus. That's this basic shape right here. And the way that that is made is by dimpling the stretchy fabric of the universe. Stretchy fabric of the universe, dimpling in this direction, dimpling in this direction, and then what we end up with is this. And I'm going to I'll do erasing. Here we go, so that I don't have that problem. Alrighty. And so you understand that this is circular and this is in cross section. We made that happen by taking a ball or a sphere. Here I'm drawing a big giant yellow sphere. Oh, that didn't come out. I'll make it red so that you can see it. I can never tell what you're able to see back there. Big giant red sphere, and we started to move it around in a circle. Like my hand is a sphere and I'm moving it around in a circle. That's a big giant sphere and I'm moving it around, and that is what creates that torus shape, okay? When I take that torus shape, I'm then going to add another dimension. So if I'm moving my pen in one direction, like say rolling it along like this, I'm moving it in one direction. Let's say I then decide to flip my pen like this. Now I am flipping my pen in another dimension. So I hope that my vocabulary is just that you're connecting with my vocabulary and the descriptive words that I'm choosing to describe non-physical energy patterns. So we have, at the same time that this movement is rolling like this, I'm now going to start to flip it like a pancake. All right? So that's what I'm doing with that chakra. That chakra is whirling around like this. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to start making it go end over end. So when I do that, I'm now highlighting in red. There's a little spot here and a little spot here and a little spot here and a little spot here. And those are like the edges of the whirlpool. They form boundaries. It is the edge of where the energy is pulling from. When that edge, which is circulating around like this, so it's going around like this, starts to turn in the next dimension. So that would be coming out of the screen and towards us. I just drew that coming this way, kind of like a salt shaker flipping end over end. That's how you get the second vortex pair out of it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to draw it again because I know that it's hard to envision and hard to see what's going on. So let's do the first vortex and the second vortex. This might be a little easier to see because I drew them the way that wheels on a car are oriented. So that might be a little bit more easier to understand. Wheels on a car, so we have these rolling forward like this, okay? And what if at the same time that I've got those guys wheeling forward like that, if I also start the entire thing swirling around like this? So what we have now is essentially a gyrostabilizer. We have energy flowing in two perpendicular motions. This is what creates stabilized mental flight along a particular timeline. This is what makes us be on a timeline, or makes our awareness be experiencing this timeline as opposed to other timelines. Hey, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, I know I'm using the simplified flat version, when you are experiencing. If I'm experiencing this timeline here, why am I experiencing that one as opposed to this one over here? Part of it has to do with iterations. The idea that when we come into the physical form, we are here as part of a refinery of consciousness. and going through every single and exploring and experiencing every single possible combination has to do with filling in these energy patterns, and it allows you to get to the next level. So it's like saying, I cannot get to level Z without going through level A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. And then finally I get to level Z. And in the second half of this lecture, I will tell you about the significance of that. It's called being an ascended master. When you get to level Z, that means you get to exit the wormhole. You get to get out of this refinery. You've been refined. But right now we are just defining what the torus is and how it works, okay? And I keep on redirecting in order to like keep it clean and clear here. We have the torus, the donut shape, and we have energy that flows around in a circle like this and like this. And at the same time, we have energy that is flowing up and down in a line like this. And I'll choose different colors to make that a little bit easier to see also. So here's circular energy going around in a circle. We'll make that red. And linear energy that is going up and down in a straight line, we'll make that green. I don't know if you can see on your screen at home that there's a difference between those two colors. These are two divergent directions or pathways that energy is moving. And this has everything to do with what people call being stuck on the wheel of time or being trapped in karma. Because you can see, this is that time vortex. Here's birth right down here. And here's the little wormhole where you get to exit. If you're a good girl or boy, you go through all of your iterations. And here's the flowing membrane of death. So first of all, we understand that the boundary conditions for the shape of the chakras and the vortex, the boundary is death. And you can see the negative space, and I spoke about this in last week's class. This shadow area in here, 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 and here, that negative space is represented by this sculpture. Now you can see this sculpture could fit inside of here if I made them exactly the right, proportions. This is the negative space of these chakras. And negative does not have anything to do with value. It is just like saying the negative space of this teacup is where the tea can actually fit inside of the cup, all right? It means that there's a receptive place for energy to actually go into. When I draw this diagram back here, you're used to seeing this in my artwork and my paintings. You see that that four-lobed shape. That's the front four lobes of this. Boom, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then of course I've got 4 back here because that's a cross section. And when you're looking at my artwork, you're seeing it all as flat. So the timelines that you are exploring and occupying are all in this area that I've just colored in. That would be like the white area down here. And notice, look at this. Well, if I color in all of these areas where the time cones go, this is the negative space in here. This is a place where you can't go. You can't get in there. There is not a doorway for you to get in there. And yet, energy is in there, and energy is flowing in there, and there's all sorts of things that are happening in there. So this is talking about different dimensions that you do not necessarily have access to. We are currently experiencing the dimension that is this stuff down here. I'm scribbling it and highlighting it in green. We are experiencing this area here, 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 here. All right? I know that the level 1 people might not be up to speed with this, but level 2 people are. When I have spoken about the flying rainbow lasagna, where's my little lasagna? And I have said that the special thing about it is that it allows the inner surface to communicate with the outer surface. The inside of the lasagna and the outside of the lasagna can communicate. That's a step up from the diagram that I have right back here, where if you're in that, I'm using my shadow to point. If you're in that part right down there, that green lower vortex, you can't get into this red upper vortex. That's the negative space. If you try to get in there, you fly into a membrane of death that unmakes you. So the way to get into from this green vortex down here to this red lobe up here, you know, how do you get into this space, is you have to turn the whole thing into a flying rainbow lasagna shape. And that allows the inside and the outside to communicate. So that's just whetting your appetite, because I'm trying to stay focused here. We're just establishing information about the torus and about the way that energy flows around this shape. Let me clear this away. Let me do another drawing of it. And again, don't be concerned if it doesn't all make sense right at once. I draw it in a lot of different ways, and essentially I'm giving you different viewpoints. Like I'm giving you like front, side, top, and then eventually you'll knit it all together and you'll understand it. The torus can also be understood that it is being made by a series of hoops, like hula hoops. So here's one hula hoop, all right? Here's another hula hoop. Now I'm using perspective to draw some that are sticking out at us. Oh, look, those two are kind of sticking out at us. Here's one that's sticking out at us, but it's kind of at a strange angle. Here's one that is going away from us. Here's some that are kind of pointed away from us, quote unquote. So if you didn't see me draw that, it might be hard for you to see that there's a torus there. But with your imagination, you can connect together these upper levels of the hula hoops and these lower levels of the hula hoops and begin to see that there is I'm using red, I hope you can see it on the screen back there, that there is an apple core shape that unites them all together. So understanding that the torus is created by almost exactly like a slinky, except they are individuated hoops. A slinky is connected. I'm drawing a connected long line. These are not. These are individuated hoops. So you've got one like this, and one like this, and then other ones that go around like this. Now let's talk about the way that energy flows around this pattern, because this is not just a static object. Although this is something that I'm holding here, like it's an object, it's actually made of energy that is flowing. And it actually flows. Ooh, let's use the picture. I need like a bright color that you can really see. Not bright enough. Maybe yellow? You can't really see what I'm doing. I'm looking for a color that you can actually see on the screen because I know it's a little bit difficult. But energy flows, there we go. Well, I'm making a huge, really, really, really fat line. There you go, in white. Down, so flows down into the vortex and then out the bottom the other side. All right, then up and around to the top, and then down the vortex, out the other side, and back up and around again. So of course what I've just drawn is a lazy 8, figure 8 lying on its side. Without the picture it might be a little bit easier to see. Down, here's that little wormhole vortex, out the other side, up and around, down and up the other side. All right, interesting. And first of all, this is the flow of energy in our planet. Our planet has a toroidal energy field around it. And the energy that is flowing around the planet is cosmic energy. It is a high energy, protons, electrons, and the same type of particles that are emitted from the sun. Those particles would fry the biosphere and Earth life if they all made it to the surface of Earth. So Earth has this lovely magnetic energy field shaped like a torus that channels the incoming excessive energy to the poles and creates the phenomenon known as the aurora borealis, meaning northern, aurora australis, meaning southern. So the energy as it is circulating in these patterns going to the North Pole and South Pole is what causes these two phenomena. I just have to take a brief break and save this part, and then it'll process. Here we go. There we go. And of course, they all get saved to Edu Creations. Give me a minute here. And Educreations has a pro feature for students, and I am still figuring it out. I will tell you about the features of it, but basically, here we go. And now I need to get my photos back. Hold on one moment. Good. Earth has a oh, okay. I need to get it started. Recording. Earth also has a toroidal energy field and has something called the Coriolis effect. So the circulation of energy around Earth is not just merely the figure 8 lazy 8 of the torus. And I'm sorry that I drew that too fast for anyone who couldn't see it. Let's draw it slower. Around like this and around like this, all right? With Earth being, here in the middle. Earth has the Coriolis effect. This has everything to do with hurricanes in the north circulating counterclockwise. Let me draw counterclockwise circulations. And storms in the south circulating clockwise. Because Earth herself is rotating, she's a rotating torus, the energy that would be a figure 8 going like this actually gets changed a little bit. And you end up having a shape that is, well, exactly what I draw all the time, but I'm trying to draw it properly. I hope it's coming through. It's hard to see in just a line drawing and the confusion of the projector back there. Now I'll use a different color to highlight this. I hope that you can see what I've got there. Here's a vortex at the top in red, vortex at the bottom in red, and then here's a side vortex in green and a side vortex in green. So what I'm trying to say is that Earth is a donut, has this beautiful donut-shaped energy field like this, and that donut-shaped energy field is itself rotating in another perpendicular angle, and that is what causes the energy to be like this. I hope that I've articulated that well, because I wanted to draw the parallel between this shape and the figure 8 shape. It's like saying the energy as it flows through the torus is not merely one figure 8 on its side like this. It actually ends up being two figure 8s, one that's kind of like this, and then here's one in a different color, one that is like this. It's more complex than just one donut. It's two donuts. It's donuts that are at right angles to one another. All right, let me clear the ink and take a little drink. If you are not confused, I'm now going to confuse you. Because when I draw the torus and I say, oh, the energy essentially, if this is a wormhole here, that red dot in the middle, the energy essentially comes out of the wormhole and circulates back up into the wormhole, okay? But now, and in this painting here, I have kind of a simplification, but I think that you can still see. So we've got the big giant red circle, and then within there we've got the smaller orange circle, the smaller yellow circle, the smaller green circle. Now I want to show you what's really happening at that tiny little zone in there, what's really going on at the wormhole. I'm gonna pretend that we're zooming in now, and now we're getting the microscopic view. So this is red, all right, and red. When energy flows in through here, and I have this, I keep on showing you like a big giant dot or like a big giant wormhole. Okay, so energy flows in through the top and it reaches this wormhole. And I've been showing it very simplistically to you as if it just goes through the wormhole and then just goes right out the bottom. That is not what happens. Energy flows, oops, I will draw that hole. Energy flows into the wormhole and it goes into another dimension. And it comes out actually off screen, but it comes out as orange and then circulates down here. So when it comes out off screen, it comes out up here. Oops, up here, which I'm highlighting is right over here. So the energy comes out here, circulates up and around, and you think, oh, we're back to the wormhole. It's going to circulate back around again. No, it doesn't. It goes through a wormhole and it starts here. And, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do that right. It starts here, right in the middle there. And then circulates around. I'm confusing you in the midst of your confusion. That's not very good. Start again. This is that central wormhole. This is energy coming in, reaches the wormhole, and it does not exit on the red line. So now I'm going to show it exits as an orange line, and it circulates up and around, and then you think, okay, now it goes through the wormhole. It does go through the wormhole, but it does not come out on the orange line or on the red line. It comes out on the yellow line and goes all the way around and comes back to the wormhole, and it goes through the wormhole, and then it does not come out on the yellow line. It comes out on the green line, and then that goes to the wormhole, which does not come out on the green line. It comes out on the turquoise line, which goes through the wormhole, which then comes out on the indigo line, which goes through the wormhole, which then goes through the violet line, which then goes through the wormhole, which then circulates out the bottom. So inside of every one of these circles, you have a spiral. You know, in the beginning half of this level 1 lesson, I spoke about how there's energy that is going in these two divergent directions. Circular, going around like this, and then seemingly linear, but linear is really a hula hoop on its side, and that all of these, and that the circle is not just a circle, that it is a spiral. These are all spirals. So we're actually, when you are looking, let me draw a nice torus for us. So here's one that's kind of shaped more like a tunnel. When you are going into the tunnel, like a car that's going to drive in that tunnel, the energy that goes in there is actually like a spiral. And this is the way a lot of natural forms represent this in the world. If you care to, look at some videos of smoke rings and smoke when it curls. Ocean waves do this also, but it's really easy to see in smoke rings. Like, you know, if a person puffs smoke out in exactly the right way. Check out some slow motion videos of that and you'll see that's exactly what we have. Because this is, it's the torus, and it is the way that energy flows, and that's just one example in the natural world. You'll actually see, I should change to a different color, smoke flowing around in this direction, and then it flows around, and then it makes these lovely little whirls in the inside. And this is how energy is being refined in your body, in Earth's consciousness, and in the awareness of the universe at large. Remember, I'm telling you all about the various iterations and possible combinations of the activities, ideas. It's about what you think and what you choose to do and how you choose to use your body. That all of those various combinations add up to your life experience and create the process of refining your consciousness so that eventually, let me change the color, you can see it here, eventually you will be occupying that central core timeline. I know I went through that quickly, that you're circulating around and around and around and around and around, and eventually when you go through every single layer and every single iteration of every single layer, then you get to go out the other side of the wormhole. So it would be like saying this: if my front door is a wormhole, And I got to my front door and I entered and I said, I'm in my living room now. And then in order to get into the next level, I would turn around and go through the front door again, except it would not lead me back to the front porch. It would lead me to a new room that I would have to go through and then go through the front door, but it wouldn't lead me to the front porch. I don't get to the front porch until I go through every single layer of every single chakra. And then I get to exit the wormhole and actually go back out onto the front porch. This is what we're talking about when we talk about karma and refinement and the refinery of your awareness as you're having an earthly experience. This is like the biofeedback of consciousness and awareness as it is on its journey. What works and what doesn't work. That's what biofeedback is all about. Like, I touch this thing, how does it feel? I touch this, does it work, does it not work? When we're talking about the time vortex, this is about death as a focuser of consciousness. We have this shape that is like this, and this membrane over here, is flowing like in these directions, and it is literally focusing your awareness, because if you are over here traveling in this direction, your awareness cannot go any further. It is only when you get into the proper alignment, so that means not going in this direction, not going in this direction, going in this direction. We're talking about the way laser light is created, okay? So you in your life, this time cone right here, this is the refinement of you and your decision-making process. Let's talk about how laser light is created. Ordinary light has light waves that go all over. This way, this way, this way, this way. Laser light has light that is coherent. All of the peaks and all of the troughs, or the ups and the downs, all match up perfectly together. The way that is created is by bouncing light back and forth between two mirrors. Crazy light going in every single direction. If you have mirror here and mirror here, and we start bouncing the light back and forth between those two mirrors, it eventually begins to become unified. The light waves are marching together like soldiers. They're all on the right foot, they're all on the left foot, they're all on the right foot, they're all on the left foot, and eventually all of the light waves match up, and then they may exit. The mirrors have a little tiny hole at one end, and the light waves cannot exit this apparatus with mirrors at both ends until they are coherent, because then they're all focused into this tiny little beam that can actually make it through that wormhole. I think Mike just had an inner realization, and if it's something that you'd like to share, that's totally cool, totally appropriate. We'd love to hear about it, or whenever is the right time to hear about it. Well, I'm going to relate that idea of the laser light exiting the mirror to your consciousness exiting the time vortex. So, let's say you are born, this is the beginning down here, and these are your membrane of death, the walls that you cannot get past. And here you are trying and trying and trying and trying and trying to have the right life experiences that will bring you in alignment with this timeline, that will eventually allow you to exit the apparatus. Well, up until this point, you've been like a non-coherent light wave, running around, going in every single different direction. And that literally means that you would not be able to hold together in cohesion when you exit this reality and are subjected to the greater forces of consciousness in the universe. So I often liken us to little baby sea turtles, and we're in eggs and we're on the seashore and we're trying to break out of our eggs and get out of the sand and climb out and then make it to the ocean of consciousness. Guess what, guys? The ocean of consciousness has ocean currents in it that are so powerful they would rip you apart if you didn't have cohesion. This is the sense that through cultivating your awareness, you create your energy body into this shape, your light body into this shape of coherent light, that you have organized your vibrating waveforms so that they keep on being organized even if you put them in a new place and subject them to all sorts of new energy and impulses. So if we imagine that this is made out of energy that's flowing, energy's flowing, and now let's say I put it in the middle of a tornado. A tornado is very powerful. That tornado would just unmake all of this, whoosh, like whoosh it away, unless this had coherence. I've spoken about in this class the idea of using the sun as a portal for true star travel and mental consciousness travel, and that this is the way that true star travelers get around. They don't use a clank metal spaceship, they use their consciousness. But one's consciousness must be refined to the point of being coherent. It needs to stick together even if it is subjected to a solar tsunami of energy or the enormous, powerful waves of energy that exist in the ocean of consciousness in the world that is, the greater world out there. I'm not only talking about on the surface of the sun, I'm talking about in the hyperspace realms where time exists, that there are flows of time that are very powerful, and that this is essentially what we are doing. The idea, what we are doing, I'm sorry if I don't finish my sentences. What we are doing is essentially cultivating our light bodies to the point of coherence so that we can be subjected to those larger forces of the universe without being unmade, all right? When we are talking about becoming an ascended master or exiting the wormhole, this is not based on whether you are a good girl or a bad boy, It's not like, oh, I'm a good fairy, so I wave my magic wand and you're allowed to go, you're allowed to go, you're allowed to go. It's nothing as capricious as that. All of this is like, I don't want to say like science. All of this is a system that holds together and does not contradict itself in any way. And so, for your consciousness to travel endlessly, it is necessary to maintain your coherence, to not be burst apart like a soap bubble, or perturbed by the perturbations of the field on your journey. I know this is, I choose my words so carefully because I'm trying to paint the correct mental picture of you being energy submerged within an ocean of energy. And that what we are experiencing here in terms of self-cultivation is cultivating yourself to the point that you will not be unmade when you are submerged in the ocean of consciousness. It's not like, nanny poo poo, you're not good enough to get in the ocean of consciousness. Not at all. It's more like, oh, you want to go in the ocean of consciousness? Fine. But if you go in like that, you're going to get dissolved that quickly. In order for you to go into the ocean of consciousness and not merely be dispersed and dissolved, it is necessary to have your own innate form and to maintain that form. When we are going through the refinery of consciousness, that are all of the iterations of our timelines, we are learning to maintain the coherence of our own form so that eventually we can exit this layer of reality and enter the next layer. And when we exit the layer of reality, we exit through this wormhole. So I always draw it as a big giant, it looks like a volcano with a caldera up there. The wormhole is not a big giant opening like this. It is tiny. It contains only one timeline. So let me clear a bit of space here and I'll draw this picture. We're talking about possibilities and probabilities. Oops, because this picture of the field surrounding a person is the possibilities of that person's life experience and probabilities. So possible would be defined as what can happen. Probable would be defined as what is likely to happen. And when we talk in terms of likelihood, we're speaking in terms of, numbers and math. So if I have this surface area of this big, giant, circular thing here, and I have one little tiny dot at the middle, and you can't even see the dot, it's so small, I made it on the screen. There is a very, very good likelihood in terms of numbers that any dot that I make will fall within the red zone. This whole area out here, this whole area outside of that little tiny central dot. And there is a microscopic possibility that the next dot that I make will actually go directly on top of, I'm going to make a giant dot, that central dot in the middle there. So that central dot is the path of least likelihood. If I were to liken this to an archer's target, and we are shooting arrows, and the arrows are arrows of consciousness trying to get through the target, you have to fill up this whole entire area with arrows. This whole entire area around here would have to be filled up, exploring every single possible iteration before you get an arrow to stick right in that middle wormhole, right through there. So this goes back to what I was speaking about in the first segment of class, the ultimately stretchy fabric of the universe. Remember, I drew this picture and I drew a red bowling ball of consciousness sitting on top of there, and it starts to make that stretch on down. That bowling ball of consciousness wants to get out through the wormhole that's right down there. It wants to get out through there, but it cannot go directly through there. It has to circulate. It has to go through all of this, all of this, all of this, this, and then it finally can go through all of there. So now we understand these vortex drawings that I draw, these are pictures of consciousness exploring itself. We could say consciousness is God. We could say consciousness is you and I. It is awareness. It is not simply limited to humanity at all. This is happening on every single level of every single animal. This is pretty important stuff. Even a one-celled animal, an amoeba, still has a time vortex. That amoeba has various possibilities that they can experience in their life. And some of those possibilities are the divinely prepared possibilities that will create an amoebic experience that will continue seamlessly into the next experience. So now let's also talk a little bit about what actually happens when you get out of the wormhole. And this will also relate to the upcoming level 2 teaching. When you actually get out through there, so let's draw this again, we have circulated all around, we filled up all of this stuff, all. When you finally are in alignment and you are lean and mean and prepared to exit the wormhole, what happens is you find yourself at the beginning of the next time cone, which would be shaped like this. And you then have to explore all of the iterations at this end and this end and this end and circulate up, until you find that you are in alignment again with the central core possibility. And then when you exit that wormhole, this is a endless process of refinement, where every time you reach the limit or the boundary of that particular section, you then circulate into a new realm where you have a new octave to explore or a new quantum to explore. And I also want to do a little bit here with overlapping time cones. And don't worry, like I said, if you don't absorb all of this all at once, do not be concerned, because I do a lot with the idea of the time cones. So first I'm going to draw person A. And now I'll draw in a different color. I hope you can see. I hope it shows differently. Person B. And you can see that there is this little area of coincidence where person A and person B and their timelines overlap. What that means is that these are the places where those two individual beings could actually meet and interact in the physical realm. All right? if I lived on, I'm drawing a different timeline. If I lived on this timeline over here, and you lived on this timeline over here, they don't touch, they don't overlap. They're like threads of a garment that are woven far away and they don't interact. However, the threads of this garment over here, they do interact. And this starts to, if we understand the universe visually, like I've been drawing single time cones and showing you single chakra shapes, but these are all woven together into a matrix or a system, and all of these chakras share energy with each other. Energy flows through this chakra system, and it flows through your neighbor's chakra system, and through that neighbor's chakra system. And this is called interaction. This is called interacting with different people. I'm going to draw a time cone now that is a mama's time cone and a baby's time cone. So here's mama, all right? And this is relevant because if you have a physical body here, your body had a mama. And now I'm drawing on this red timeline over here, mama got pregnant and mama has a baby. And that makes this little time cone happen inside of there. That's mama's baby. Of course, you know, that individual can exist if mama dies. Oops. If mama dies, then we are removing mama's time cone here, right? But that person still exists. I am bringing this up to help you to understand that some people's timelines overlap, some people's timelines do not overlap. If you give birth to someone, your timeline overlaps. It has to. These are like always and nevers in math. You know, we start to define terms and then we start to say, what are the things that always happen? What are the things that never happen in this system? In this system. If you give physical birth to a physical child, your timelines have to overlap. All right? Even if you are comatose in the hospital and you give birth via cesarean section, your physical body was still alive, overlapping at the same time that the physical body of your child was there. So we are now understanding things such as when you meet someone, when you have sex with someone, how that changes the shape of the tapestry of time. Because you could not, if you were on this timeline over here and someone else was on this timeline over here, you could never meet, you could never touch physically, you would never procreate. That means that there would never be, the little baby timeline that comes from the interaction of you two. This has to do with how are new threads woven into the tapestry of time. You know, I always start off the diagram and I say, you're here at birth, and then here's your timelines moving forward. How do we start off these birth threads? How do I determine the starting position of this person's birth? It's not arbitrary. It is all laid out graphically, the way that tiles fit together on a floor. So there's a reason why these are all laid together, how they all fit together, and how they all interact with one another. So I would love to hear Mike's insight when I was talking about the laser focusing consciousness back and forth. It seemed like that was really hitting home. I'm finishing up this diagram, opening up the floor to questions and comments, gonna wrap this up back here and then get into level 2. So would love to hear if anyone has any questions or comments. Oh, and I think I see something down in the chat here. The wormhole is located at the 11th dimension. We could say that. Yes, no. Because the dimensions are infinite, but math as it currently stands doesn't necessarily recognize the infinity beyond the 11th dimension. So for ease and common language, we're working within the octave of 0 dimension to the 11th dimension. So when you exit the wormhole, that would be like exiting the 11th dimension. And there is always a higher subsequent dimension. It's turtles all the way down. You will not get to the end ever. The end will always circulate back to another genesis and another beginning. I'm just pausing this thing in the back. But I want to make sure that that has been a satisfying answer and that I didn't just gloss over that. The 11th dimension, let's say, is the limit of what we can describe with the tools of perception and description that we currently have. However, there's truly an infinite number of dimensions, because every time you have a line like this, any dimension that is linear, you have a dimension around that line. And so let's say I wrap a tiny skinny thread around this line. Well, then I can wrap a tiny skinny thread around that skinny thread. And then I can wrap a tiny molecularly skinny thread around that thread. It's truly infinite. And with our consciousness, that's exactly what we are doing. We are infinitely embroidering the texture of the world, the universe, with our consciousness. So really, we started off in broad strokes and we explored a lot of the universe and then kept on going and kept on going. And when I say we, I mean all of us. All of us that are here as individuals were once in unity, and we decided that it was time to explore consciousness. And that's what each one of our little individuated journeys and experiences is all about. I need to take a little bit of a drink. And, oops, hold on one moment, just do a little 7th inning stretch, 9th inning stretch, however they do that in baseball. Get my next lesson going. And, oh, okay, also, so let me pause this.